Today I wanted to talk a little bit about how to raise funding for your startup, especially in the early stages when you're looking for angel investment. It can be quite hard because you might still be early stages and you might not have everything ready and there's no structure in place. But still, there's a lot of investors out there who are really interested to invest in these startups because if they can get a share early on, they can make huge returns in the long run. If you're looking for funding, you should really make sure that you really need the funds to get to the next step, and really try to get to that point with spending as little cash as possible, because then the investors will be really happy to see that, because they know that when they invest in your company, that you'll be cash efficient and you won't be spending loads on salaries or on stupid things. And it's always much easier showing the investor what you're actually doing and what your business is about if you have a working prototype, or you can show them a demo. It doesn't even need to necessarily be a working prototype, but something physical that the investor can see at least, or can try out for themselves. It's also really important that you already have a website and a company email, because that will make you look way more professional. And it's also easier then for the investor to just go to your website and check out what you're actually doing, just read through the information and really get a feel for what's going on. It's also really useful to have your team page on there to show who's involved in the project, what's their background, what interests them and why they're working on this. And then they can really get a feel for who you are and what you're doing. You should also be focusing on your social media to make sure that you have a further reach, and then people who are interested in what you're doing or your field will start to follow you and try to get them to reshare and everything else, just to get as much reach as possible. And on these streams of social media, you should be posting about the problem that you're solving, the work that you're doing, anything that's interesting for the people. And this should be regular so people keep seeing it, and that you're really in the face of everybody and people think of you. So perhaps then when they're talking with their friend or an investor, for example, they can mention you and say that what you're working on. And it should be really clear what your message is, so that when people see your posts, they know exactly what it is that you're working on. Next, it's really important to build a big network. Currently with coronavirus, it might be a little bit difficult to get out there and go to any events, but you can still go to webinars, be active in the chat and talk to other people. And that's one way you can build up your network. But nowadays we have LinkedIn. It's a great tool. You can just start adding people from your industry or people who are interested in the industry. And then again, this is just excelling your network, and more people know what you're doing. And so now that you've got a feasible business, you know what you're working on, you have a working prototype, it's time to build a pitch deck. There's a lot of examples online. Just keep the format super simple. Maybe a good example is the one that Airbnb used. And again, investors, they get pitch decks every day and all the time. If you follow the format that everybody is using, they'll be familiar with it and they'll understand your business much quicker. You do, however, want this pitch deck to stand out a little bit, so make sure that it's super clean, it's attractive, it's really concise and straight to the point. But maybe add in something from your personality to make it more interesting or to stand out. And when you're creating this pitch deck, put yourself in your investor's shoes. Like, which figures would he be interested in? Is he interested in the market size? Is he interested in the impact it's having? And really tune it to what the investor is looking for. And now that you've kind of built up your network, you've got a nice website and a nice pitch deck, it's time to start adding angel investors. And there's so many ways to do this online nowadays. Again, LinkedIn is great. You can type in angel investor and then your city, and it will come up with hundreds. And you can always check, what are they interested in, which companies have they invested in, who are they connected with, and so on. So you can really just easily reach out to them, add a little message about who you are and what you're doing. And as they're looking for opportunities, they'll usually have a conversation with you if they're interested. It's also good, maybe even before you're looking for funding, to start adding the investors, because then they'll be keeping track on what you're doing, they'll be seeing your social media posts, and also then they'll feel more familiar with you later on. But also, if you're adding angels later, the community is usually relatively small and they all know each other. But then if they see you have common connections with other angels or trusted people from the industry, they're usually more keen to have a conversation with you. They always say quality over quantity, and often it's best to actually find key investors who are really suitable for your business. Perhaps you can see they're liking posts of different companies in your field. They've maybe invested in something similar, or you can see they're looking for exactly what you have. And then maybe it's best to compile a list with all of these investors who are super interesting for your business, and then really tailor a nice message for them to get them interested and really focusing on them, than just shooting out blank messages to absolutely everyone and anyone who has investor in their name. So there's quite a few different ways to reach out to them. You can just add a message when you're adding them on LinkedIn. You can find their email online using different websites, or you can have a warm introduction. And warm introductions are really good because if somebody they know, a friend or another investor, introduces you to them, they're always more willing to go that bit further. So again, using LinkedIn or anything else, you can see who's connected with the investor that you're interested in, and then you can have a short conversation with them and tell them that you're really interested to get in touch with this investor. And most people are nice, and they will actually just introduce you to them and tell them a little bit about what you're doing, and then you can just continue the conversation from there. If we're doing emails, I can go over a quick example. So here I have a basic email that you can use, or something along these lines. So it's hello, and then the investor's name, of course. And then you say, I came across your profile, and then you tell them why exactly you're interested in having them as an investor, and maybe they've got a lot of experience in the field, or maybe you see they're liking a lot of posts. But tell them that, and they'll be happy that you've done your research and you're not just shooting out a random email. And then maybe you can say something like, we might have an opportunity for you, just to kind of tease them a little bit and get them interested. And then the next part, you can say something like, we're a startup working on whatever it is, and then add your website. It's just a quick way to get them to see what you're doing. You don't want to have a super long email, because then they just won't read it, or they'll get bored or don't quite understand it. But you want to really have something that's really clear and concise. And then the next sentence, I guess you can have something like, so far we have done, and then maybe, what have you done? Which milestones have you achieved? Do you already have revenue? Do you have customers? Or maybe you have a working prototype? Whatever it may be, you can add that there. And then also add something that they don't know about the market. Maybe you have this new competitive advantage with some new technology, or maybe you have a local knowledge where nobody else knows about this, and this is really going to give you a huge head start. And hopefully then you've already piqued their interest and they want to see this further. And then if you feel like it, add a pitch deck. It's also a nice way for them to see a little bit more, but it's not absolutely necessary, because at the end of the day you want to be having a conversation with them and not just telling them everything from the get-go. So then hopefully when you've had a conversation with them, maybe you've had a quick phone call where you've told them a little bit more, you get to the point where you can then set up a meeting with them and maybe show them your product. It's always good to choose a place that you've been before, or that you're familiar with, maybe somewhere where you can connect your screen. If you have an office, then you can take them to the office, or just a coffee shop is also fine, and then you can show your slides on a laptop. And then of course you want to kind of get to the point, have a really good story ready, where it will be different from your pitch deck. It will have all the key information, but kind of make something that tells an interesting and fun story that is really easy for them to understand, but is also fun and memorable. And that can be quite hard, but the only way to do that is to practice and really do it with everyone. Try it with your parents, with your friends. It's also good to practice this with investors who aren't as interesting for your business, but you can first set up the meetings with them just to practice. And then the key investors, you can leave them till later, when you're already experienced, you know exactly how the pitch will go and what they're interested in. And just keep adapting the pitch deck. You'll notice maybe some parts you can leave out, or something's missing, and it can always be improved. And then eventually you'll have a story which is super clear, easy to understand, and also fun for the investor to listen to. Depending on what type of an investor it is, perhaps even in this meeting they'll be talking about what exactly it is that you're looking for and how it would be to work together. But perhaps as well you need to have another meeting later on to kind of finalize the situation. And now that you've got to the point where you have found an investor who's interested and wants to take it a step further, you need to start negotiating on what you're offering them and what they're offering you. And this is going to be somebody you're going to be working with for a long time, so you really need to make sure that it's somebody that you get on with, the character matches, but also somebody who can really bring value to the team. Is he bringing more than money? Does he have a big network? Is he really experienced? There's a lot of things that he can bring to the table, but you need to make sure it's right for your business. And before all of this, you need to really research the different structures of investment that there are. Will it be a convertible loan? Is it straight up for equity? And really know what you're worth. So see what the market potential is, how big can this potentially be, how much is invested in similar companies and what is traded for it, but really know what you're worth. But you also need to realize that the investor needs to get something out of it, so you can't be too greedy. At the end of the day, the investor's taking a huge risk investing in an early stage startup, and of course they want something in return. And also, this isn't necessarily bad, because if they have equity in your company, they'll also be more committed to make sure that it works, and they'll have a reason to help you as much as they can and not just be a silent investor. And lastly, then, when it comes to signing the papers, make sure that you read everything, check out all the terms and really make sure that it's beneficial for both parties. Maybe there's something that isn't quite clear or something that could screw you over in the long run, but just be really clear to read everything through, because it can be really bad for your company if you're binded to something that you signed in the agreement. And basically, that's it. It might sound a lot easier than it is, and it's very difficult. You have to reach out to a lot of investors, and you will get huge amounts of negativity. But eventually, if your company's at the right stage and you're really working your hardest, you will definitely find an investor. So just don't give up. Eventually, you will get what you need to bring your company to the next stage. So I really hope this was useful for you and that it gave you some good insights. And if you're interested to see more, please subscribe to the channel, and I'll see you in the next video.